The city had been awake long before dawn, but Isabella Cross barely noticed anymore. Through the tinted windows of her black sedan, glass towers bled into a blur, glowing with cold morning light. A fine drizzle streaked across the windshield, distorting the shapes outside, making everything look as restless as she felt. Her phone vibrated again. A third email marked urgent. Another line item on a to-do list that never ended. She swiped it aside without opening it, then glanced at the small figure curled up in the seat beside her. Mia was staring out the window, chin tucked into her pink coat, her breath fogging the glass. She hadn't spoken a single word in 2 years, not to Isabella, not to anyone. The car slowed at the curb outside a quiet cafe on the corner of Waverly and Main. Isabella had chosen it because no one there would recognize her. No investors, no journalists. Just strangers who wouldn't care that she was the CEO of CrossTech, a woman who could negotiate billion-dollar contracts in 5 languages, yet still couldn't reach her own daughter. Just breakfast. Isabella murmured, though Mia didn't look up. Her driver opened the door, and they stepped out into the misty air. Inside, the cafe smelled of fresh bread and cinnamon. Only a few early risers filled the room, and soft jazz hummed under the clink of mugs. They settled into a booth by the window. Isabella ordered 2 plates of pancakes, though she knew Mia would only pick at hers. She tried to start small talk, more for herself than for Mia, pointing at the rain, the flowers on the counter, but the child only traced circles on the table with her fingertip. The silence between them felt heavier than the gray sky outside. Her phone buzzed again. She reached for it automatically, thumb hovering over the screen. Critical decision by noon. Board meeting moved up. She hated how easily the corporate world seeped into every corner of her life. Isabella told herself to put the phone away just one morning without work, but old habits never loosen their grip willingly. The bell above the cafe door chimed. A man walked in, shaking water from his jacket. He wasn't dressed like the crowd Isabella was used to, no tailored suit, no gleaming watch. His flannel shirt was rolled at the sleeves, his boots scuffed from real work. A boy of about 8 followed him, backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. The man ordered coffee, scanned the room for a seat, and then his eyes met Mia's. It was only a passing glance, but Mia didn't look away. He gave her a warm smile and, without saying a word, lifted his hand and signed, "Good morning." Something shifted in Mia's face like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Her lips parted, not to speak, but to smile. Then her small fingers moved, clumsy but certain. "Good morning." Isabella froze. The phone slipped from her hand and landed on the table with a dull thud. She hadn't seen her daughter's eyes light up like that in years. The man walked over, his son trailing behind, and crouched to Mia's level. "My name's Ethan," he said softly, speaking aloud but signing every word as well. "This is Lucas." The boy waved shyly. "We just wanted to say hi." Mia responded with a flurry of small signs Isabella couldn't understand. Ethan's brows rose in surprise, then he chuckled. "She's telling me she likes your pancakes more than mine," he translated for Lucas, whose face lit up with laughter. Isabella's throat tightened. "You know sign language?" she asked, voice barely steady. "My wife was deaf," Ethan said simply. "I wanted Lucas to grow up knowing both worlds. We use sign every day." His tone wasn't pitying, just matter-of-fact, like breathing. Something unspoken passed between them, a mother out of her depth, a stranger who understood without asking. Isabella opened her mouth to thank him, but words felt too small. Mia was already signing again, her hands alive with joy. Ethan kept pace effortlessly, making Mia giggle in a soundless way Isabella had almost forgotten existed. For the first time in 2 years, her daughter wasn't just present. She was alive. The waitress brought Ethan's coffee, and he stood, giving Isabella a small nod as if to say no need to thank me. But Isabella's heart was pounding too hard to let him just walk away. "Wait," she said, rising from her seat. "Could you maybe teach me? Just a few signs?" Ethan looked surprised, then thoughtful. "Sure. But it's not something you learn in one morning." He glanced at Lucas, then back at Isabella. "We come here every week, same time. If you're serious." "I am," Isabella said before doubt could silence her. Her voice cracked on the words. Ethan smiled gently. "All right then, next Saturday?" Isabella nodded, and Mia beamed as if she understood every word. As Ethan left with Lucas, Isabella sat back down, the untouched pancakes cooling on her plate. Her phone buzzed again, but this time she didn't look. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for Mia's fingers, mimicking the sign Ethan had shown her. "Good morning." Mia signed it back. Her eyes were brighter than the rain-washed street outside. The next Saturday came quicker than Isabella expected, though not without obstacles. In the 6 days since meeting Ethan Hayes, her life had returned to its relentless rhythm. Early morning strategy calls, a product launch deadline, and a board meeting now looming like a storm cloud. Still, she found herself glancing at the clock more often than usual, counting down to that quiet cafe on Waverly and Main. Her driver didn't understand why they were detouring again, and Isabella didn't explain. She just needed something that wasn't all glass offices and voices talking at her instead of to her. Mia sat beside her, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, unusually alert for a Saturday morning. When they stepped into the cafe, it felt different this time. Isabella caught herself scanning for Ethan before she even looked for a table. And there he was, at the same corner booth, his son Lucas animatedly explaining something with his hands, while Ethan nodded patiently. Mia tugged Isabella's sleeve and practically ran to them. Isabella followed, trying to maintain her usual composure but failing when she saw the way Mia's whole face lit up. Ethan looked up and smiled. Not the kind of smile used in business meetings, rehearsed and polished, but something unguarded. "Good morning," he said aloud and in sign at once. Isabella mirrored the gesture awkwardly. Her fingers felt stiff, clumsy, but Mia grinned anyway. They started simple. Ethan showed Isabella the alphabet, tracing letters in the air while Mia demonstrated with quick, eager hands. Lucas chimed in, showing Mia shortcuts and inside jokes only kids understood. Soon, Mia was laughing silently, shaking her head at Lucas's silly expressions. Isabella watched, equal parts wonder and ache. She'd spent 2 years searching for doctors, therapists, specialists with impressive titles, and here was a carpenter, teaching her daughter to open a door Isabella hadn't even known how to knock on. After an hour, Isabella's fingers ached, but her heart felt strangely light. "I'm terrible at this," she admitted, flexing her hands. "You're learning," Ethan said with an easy shrug. "Mia doesn't care if you're perfect. She just wants to see you trying." That landed harder than Isabella expected. She looked at her daughter, really looked at her. The way Mia's eyes tracked every sign. How she seemed to glow each time Isabella got it right. When was the last time her little girl had looked at her like that? The conversation drifted beyond hand shapes and vocabulary. Ethan told her about his workshop, how he built custom furniture, but was struggling to keep up with rent after a major client canceled. Isabella didn't offer solutions, not yet. She just listened. It felt strange, almost luxurious, to talk about something real without anyone asking her to fix it. By the second week, their meetings had become a ritual. The cafe owners started saving their booth. Mia's vocabulary expanded, her hands moving faster, more confidently. Isabella spent late nights practicing signs in front of the bathroom mirror instead of answering emails. But not everyone approved. Midweek, during a tense meeting at Crosstech headquarters, a senior board member, Marcus Layton, gave Isabella a sharp look. "You seem distracted lately," he said pointedly after she hesitated before answering a question. "This company needs your full attention, Isabella. Not personal projects." She bristled. "I'm fully committed." "Then prove it," Marcus said, sliding a document across the table. "We need to cut expenditures by 20% before next quarter. No exceptions. If you're not prepared to make hard calls, others will." It was a warning, and she heard it loud and clear. That night, Isabella came home to find Mia asleep at the kitchen table, her hands curled loosely around flashcards Ethan had drawn for her. Isabella brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face, feeling the old guilt creep in. Was she losing focus at work, or finally focusing where it mattered? Saturday came again. Isabella arrived at the cafe earlier than usual, half hoping Ethan wouldn't notice the dark circles under her eyes. But of course he did. "Rough week?" he asked as they sat down. She tried to deflect, but Ethan's steady gaze made it impossible. So she told him about the board pressure, about how fragile her position really was. She expected judgment, or worse, advice. Instead, Ethan just nodded thoughtfully. "You know," he said, signing as he spoke so Mia could follow, "when Lucas stopped talking for a while after his mom passed, I thought I could fix it. I tried everything. But sometimes what kids need isn't fixing. It's someone willing to sit in the silence with them." Isabella swallowed hard. "I'm not good at silence." "Then you're learning too," Ethan said gently. At the end of their session, Mia surprised them both. She signed, slowly but clearly. "Thank you." Isabella froze, unsure if Mia was addressing Ethan, her, or both. Ethan just smiled and nodded, translating aloud. "She's saying thank you for showing her she's not alone." Isabella's throat tightened. She wanted to say something back, but before she could, her phone buzzed again, Marcus Layton's name flashing on the screen. She let it ring. For the first time in years, she didn't pick up. But as she watched Mia chatting away with Lucas in bright, eager signs, Isabella knew the reprieve wouldn't last. The board wouldn't stay patient. And if they found out how much time she'd been spending away from the office, her corporate world was beginning to crack. By the third Saturday, Isabella was no longer pretending their cafe visits were an afterthought. She arranged her schedule around them, pushed meetings back, even lied to Marcus Layton about a client engagement so she could keep her promise to Mia. Her driver raised an eyebrow when she requested Waverly and Maine again. Isabella ignored him, staring out the window as the city passed in flashes of wet asphalt and gray sky. The drizzle hadn't stopped for days, a steady, curtain-like rain that blurred edges, softened everything it touched. But nothing felt softened inside Crosstech. The board had grown restless. Marcus's voice, smooth as ice, still echoed in Isabella's head. "If you're not prepared to make hard calls, others will." She pushed it aside as she entered the cafe. Mia spotted Ethan and Lucas immediately and ran ahead, her pink coat flaring behind her. Isabella followed more slowly, reminding herself that she was here to learn, not to think about hostile takeovers. Today, Ethan had brought small flashcards with hand-drawn pictures, simple objects, animals, feelings, each labeled with its sign. Lucas handed them to Mia like trading cards, showing her how to use them in playful sentences. Isabella watched her daughter's hands come alive. Each new sign was a key turning in a lock she'd thought was rusted shut. Mia's eyes sparkled as she signed happy, then pointed at Isabella and repeated it. "Happy, Mom." The words hit harder than any investor threat. Isabella blinked back, sudden tears, nodding like she understood, even though Ethan translated quietly, She's saying you look happy today. Isabella practiced with them for over an hour, her movements awkward but improving. She caught herself laughing, really laughing, when she accidentally signed horse instead of house, and Mia doubled over in silent giggles. But as Ethan corrected her hand shape, Isabella noticed something else. His touch was careful, never lingering, but warm. His presence steadied her in a way that felt dangerous. She wasn't used to depending on anyone, especially not someone outside her world of polished glass and sharp suits. "Your boards still giving you trouble?" Ethan asked during a break, sipping his coffee. "Always," Isabella admitted, keeping her voice low. "They think I'm distracted. They're not wrong." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," he said with a small smile. "Sometimes focus on the wrong thing looks a lot like success." Isabella studied him, unsure if he understood just how high the stakes were. If she lost her position, Crosstech would fall into Marcus Layton's hands, a man who valued numbers more than people. The thought made her stomach twist. Later that week, her fears became reality. In a private meeting, Marcus presented a thinly veiled ultimatum. "The vote's coming, Isabella. You're either with us on these cuts, or the board will find someone who is." "Someone like you?" she asked coolly. He didn't deny it. That night, Isabella sat alone in her penthouse kitchen, the city lights glittering below like distant constellations. Mia was asleep upstairs, exhausted from practicing signs all afternoon. Isabella stared at her reflection in the black window glass. She didn't recognize the woman looking back, someone who was suddenly terrified of losing everything except the one thing she'd almost overlooked. Her daughter. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. When it did, Isabella arrived at the cafe early, clutching a notebook filled with sloppy sketches of hand signs. Ethan noticed immediately. "You've been practicing," he said, impressed. "I'm not a quick learner," she admitted. "You're faster than you think," he replied. "You just need someone to believe it." They worked on whole sentences now, real conversations. Mia proudly showed her mother how to sign "I missed you," her tiny fingers spelling it out carefully. Isabella tried to respond in kind, fumbling, but Mia's grin told her it didn't matter. Between lessons, Ethan talked about his late wife, how she'd taught him patience he never knew he had. Lucas chimed in with stories that made Mia giggle, two children speaking a shared language while their parents traded glances over coffee cups. But the fragile peace didn't last. Halfway through their session, Isabella's assistant appeared at the cafe door, umbrella dripping rain onto the floor. "Miss Cross, the board meeting has been moved up. They're expecting you in 40 minutes. The words were sharp, metallic, slicing through the warm air like broken glass. Isabella felt Mia's small hand slip into hers, as if sensing the tension. Ethan looked at her, reading the storm in her face without needing a translation. "Go," he said gently. "We'll be here next week?" But Isabella hesitated. For the first time in years, she didn't want to leave a table for a boardroom. She wanted to stay in the quiet hum of laughter and clumsy signs, where success wasn't measured in quarterly reports, but in a child's smile. Still, duty called. She kissed Mia's forehead, promised to see her tonight, and walked out into the rain. By the time she reached Crosstech headquarters, her coat was soaked, but she didn't feel the cold. Inside the glass tower, Marcus was already waiting, expression sharp and satisfied. "This company," he said, "can't afford a distracted leader." Isabella sat down, spine straight. The room went still. The war had officially begun. The boardroom was cold in a way no thermostat could fix. Glass walls reflected the rain streaking down outside, while 12 pairs of eyes focused on Isabella Cross with unyielding precision. Marcus Layton stood at the far end of the long table, posture relaxed but every word sharpened like a blade. "This company thrives on discipline," he said smoothly, sliding a portfolio toward her. "Tough decisions, I'm afraid you're losing sight of that." Isabella glanced at the documents, full of proposed cuts, research programs gutted, entire teams dissolved to inflate quarterly profits, human costs disguised as strategy. "I'm not signing this," Isabella said, voice even but cold. "You're not listening to reason." Marcus smiled thinly. "And when the board votes next month, they'll listen to me." The threat lingered long after she left the building. Isabella returned home hours later, drenched from the rain, and found Mia waiting at the door with her small hands moving rapidly. "Missed you. Scared you're sad." The message landed harder than Marcus's words. Isabella knelt, still dripping rainwater onto the floor, and forced a smile as she copied Mia's sign back. "I'm okay." But Mia tilted her head, unconvinced. Children always know. That night, Isabella lay awake, phone buzzing endlessly on the nightstand. She thought about Marcus, about the empire she'd built with blood and bone, and about a man who spoke to her daughter with his hands, not his phone. Somewhere between exhaustion and clarity, she realized she was no longer afraid of losing her company. She was afraid of losing her daughter. Saturday came like a breath of fresh air, though the sky stayed gray. At the cafe, Mia ran straight to Ethan and Lucas as if she belonged there. Isabella followed, tension easing the moment she saw Ethan's steady presence. "Rough week?" he asked, reading her face instantly. "Is it that obvious?" Isabella tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. "Only to someone who knows what it's like to fight battles at home and at work," Ethan said gently. "How's the board?" "Circling like vultures." She paused, watching Mia animatedly sign to Lucas. "But I don't care as much as I should." Ethan studied her for a moment. "Maybe that means you're finally caring about the right things." They spent the next hour immersed in practice. Isabella learned phrases about feelings, family, and hope. Mia beamed every time her mother got it right. Lucas made up games to test her speed, and for the first time, Isabella found herself laughing with genuine ease. Then, Ethan showed her something unexpected. He taught her how to sign, "Proud of you." He used both hands, moving slowly so she wouldn't forget. When she tried it back, Mia's face lit up like sunrise. Isabella didn't even realize her own eyes were wet until Ethan passed her a napkin. "Careful," he teased softly. "You'll ruin your CEO image." Isabella managed a weak smile. That image might not last much longer. Ethan's brow furrowed, but before he could ask more, Mia tugged Isabella's sleeve, signing rapidly. "Want you to learn more. Want you to talk to me all the time." The words made Isabella's throat tighten. All the time. How many moments had she missed late nights at the office, dinners eaten alone, bedtime stories left unsaid because she'd believed work would wait while childhood didn't. After their lesson, they walked out together. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and glistening. Ethan carried Lucas's backpack slung casually over his shoulder, while Isabella held Mia's hand, feeling her daughter squeeze back in a way she hadn't in years. "Can I ask you something?" Isabella said as they reached the corner. "Anything," Ethan replied. "Why are you helping us, really?" Ethan hesitated. "Because I know what it's like to feel helpless when someone you love goes quiet, and because Mia's a great kid who deserves to be heard. That's all." But Isabella sensed there was more. Something unspoken in his eyes, a gentleness that had nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with choice. That night, back at her penthouse, Isabella found herself sketching sign language on the edge of a Crosstech budget report. The two worlds no longer felt separate, they were colliding. When Marcus called again, demanding an emergency meeting, Isabella ignored him. Instead, she sat with Mia, practicing the phrase Ethan had taught her, "Proud of you." Mia giggled at her mother's clumsy fingers but signed it back, small and perfect. Isabella kissed her daughter's forehead, thinking of Ethan's calm voice, his quiet conviction. Then her phone lit up again, not Marcus this time, but a message from the company's general counsel. The board is calling an early vote. 2 weeks. The war had moved faster than she expected. And Isabella knew, with icy certainty, that Marcus would use Mia's existence, the very thing giving her strength, as proof she'd lost her edge. 2 weeks. That was all the time Isabella had before the board would decide her fate. The following days passed in a blur of meetings, calls, and quiet moments with Mia that felt almost stolen, like smuggling light into a locked room. Every evening, Isabella sat on the living room floor practicing signs. Mia curled up beside her, correcting every mistake with a patient shake of her head. Ethan's lessons became more than language tutorials. They became lifelines. At the cafe, Isabella no longer checked her phone. She laughed more easily, spoke more openly. Ethan asked nothing in return, but Isabella caught the way he looked at her, sometimes curious, cautious, as if trying to solve a puzzle he wasn't sure he should touch. One rainy afternoon, Isabella found herself pacing outside Ethan's small workshop instead of rushing back to her office. Through the glass door, she saw shelves lined with handcrafted tables, chairs, and cabinets, all beautiful, all unsold. Lucas sat on the floor coloring, while Ethan sanded down the edge of a desk. It wasn't businesslike efficiency. It was honest, human work, and Isabella envied its simplicity. "You'll scare customers off standing out there," Ethan called without looking up as she entered. "Do you even get customers?" Isabella teased lightly, scanning the empty room. "Not lately," Ethan admitted with a wry smile. "Banks talking foreclosure." The words lodged in Isabella's chest. She could solve that with a single phone call, pull one string, sign one contract. But she didn't offer. Not yet. Ethan's pride deserved better than pity disguised as help. Instead, she knelt beside Mia and Lucas, letting them teach her the sign for friends. Ethan watched with quiet amusement as Isabella's fingers stumbled through the motion. "Careful," he said softly. "Once you know the word, you're stuck with it. She'll expect you to mean it." "I do," Isabella said, and she meant it more than she realized. The board meeting arrived too soon. A private conference room. A dozen suits. Marcus Layton, standing like a man already victorious. "Isabella," he said smoothly, "we've reviewed your performance. Your extracurricular distractions have not gone unnoticed." "Excuse me?" Isabella kept her voice calm, though she felt the ground tilt beneath her. "You've been absent, missing calls. Your focus is clearly divided. That's not the leadership this company needs." "What do you mean?" Isabella said evenly. "Is that I'm not willing to cut people loose to pad the numbers." "Shareholders don't invest in sentiment," Marcus replied. "They invest in results." The vote was scheduled for the following Monday. Marcus walked out first, confident she was already defeated. Isabella stayed behind, staring at the city skyline through the rain-streaked window. The towers looked fragile now, like they could shatter under their own weight. That weekend at the cafe, Isabella was quieter than usual. Mia noticed, tugging her sleeve, signing, "Worried about you. I'm okay." Isabella signed back, though her fingers trembled. Ethan saw it all without asking questions. After the lesson, he lingered by the door. "You're carrying something heavy. You don't have to tell me what it is, but you don't have to carry it alone." For a woman who had spent her entire life refusing help, those words cracked something inside her. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not just a man teaching her daughter sign language, but someone who understood loss, who lived without armor. That night, Isabella stayed up practicing until her hands ached. Not for the board, for Mia. If she was going to fall, she wanted to fall knowing she'd given her daughter a voice again. Monday arrived like a tidal wave. Isabella brought Mia to the boardroom not as a prop, but as a truth she refused to hide. Gasps rippled through the room when the little girl entered holding her mother's hand, eyes wide at the sea of sharp suits. Marcus smirked, clearly ready to use this against her. "This is highly irregular," he said coldly. "This is my daughter," Isabella replied, calm but fierce. "And this company is my other child. I can protect both." The vote began. Marcus launched into a polished speech about discipline and leadership. Isabella let him talk. She knew numbers wouldn't save her. But something else might. As the room grew tense, Mia stood on her chair and began to sign, small hands moving with certainty. Ethan, who had slipped quietly into the back of the room at Isabella's request, translated aloud. She says, "My mommy learns to talk to me every day. She listens. She's not too busy to love me." The room went utterly silent. Some board members shifted uncomfortably. Even Marcus faltered for a beat. Isabella stood tall, signing with Mia now, her movements no longer clumsy but fluent, practiced, alive. This company needs a leader who listens not just to markets, but to people. Her words, spoken and signed, landed heavier than any quarterly report. The room was so quiet Isabella could hear Mia's uneven breathing. Marcus recovered first, his voice dripping with disdain. "Touching performance," he said smoothly. "But this is a boardroom, not a kindergarten talent show." "Are we seriously letting corporate governance be swayed by a 6-year-old? Several members frowned. Others avoided his gaze. Isabella stayed calm, keeping Mia's small hand in hers. "This isn't about a child," Isabella said firmly. "It's about leadership. If you think compassion and strength can't coexist, you've already chosen the wrong future for this company." One by one, the board members cast their votes. The secretary tallied in silence, then looked up. 7 in favor of retaining Miss Sterling as CEO. 5 against. Marcus's smile froze. Isabella felt her knees almost buckle, but she didn't let go of Mia's hand. "This meeting is adjourned," the secretary announced. Outside the glass tower, the rain had stopped. Ethan waited near the curb, Lucas perched on his shoulders, grinning at Mia. Isabella walked straight into Ethan's arms, not because she needed saving, but because she no longer had to pretend she didn't. "You did it," Ethan said quietly. "No," Isabella replied, glancing at Mia. Mia giggled as Lucas signed something quickly. Isabella caught only part of it and looked helplessly at Ethan. "She just called you braver than my dad." Ethan grinned. "I'd be offended if I didn't agree." For the first time in months, Isabella laughed without holding anything back. Over the next week, things shifted. Isabella still worked late, but now she brought Mia into the office playroom. Ethan had quietly helped refurbish. The board, wary of more bad press, gave her room to run the company her way. One evening, Isabella walked into Ethan's workshop carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "I have a proposal," she said. "If this is about buying my business to save me, I'm saying no," Ethan warned, wiping sawdust off his hands. "Not buying," Isabella corrected, smiling. "Investing. Silent, partner. You keep control." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What's the catch?" "You have to teach me how to build something that doesn't fall apart," she said, glancing at a half-finished table. "Because I'm tired of thinking power comes from tearing things down." Ethan studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Deal?" 2 months later, the cafe where it all began held a different scene. Ethan's shop had its first big orders. Mia was signing full sentences with dazzling confidence. Lucas had appointed himself her translator bodyguard. And Isabella, still CEO, still formidable, looked lighter. Not because her problems had vanished, but because she'd learned she didn't have to fight them alone. Ethan handed her a small box. Inside was a bracelet made from polished wood, carved with a sign for family. "It's not jewelry," he said quickly. "It's a reminder that you already have one." Isabella slipped it on, her throat tight. She crouched beside Mia and signed thank you not just to her daughter, but to the man standing beside them. Ethan hesitated. "So, where do we go from here?" Isabella smiled. "Anywhere, as long as we listen." Mia grabbed both their hands, tugging them toward the door. For once, Isabella didn't check her phone. The world could wait.
What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping family drama, shocking betrayals, and the revenge stories you won't believe.